Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the 27th episode of Comic Art Live, and a milestone it is. I think we've made it through 8 months of doing these things, so it's been a rough road at times, but it's been a lot of fun, and I'm glad that everybody's hung out with us throughout all this. If it's your first time seeing the show, definitely, if you're on YouTube, please subscribe to this thing and hit like as often as you can. And if you're on Facebook, feel free to share it with your friends. We're always having a good time with these shows. And as you know, we're on every Tuesday through Thursday now, starting at 9. So a little bit of something different every single night. So let me bring in my co-hosts for the evening, Glenn Brunswick, Will Gabrielle, and Mike Berkey. How you guys doing?
Awesome.
Good.
Well, you know, I'll tell you, a week off without you guys really makes me feel lonely. So, I mean, I feel sad. It's like we should be doing these every week because a week off, and I kind of tear up a little bit, and I want to just do this again. So here we are, episode 27.
Well, we got
to savor it
better, Bill. We've got a very special guest this evening. You know,
that is very true. That is very true. And we're going to be talking about comic art and nothing but comic art. It's going to be a really good time. So let me bring in the guest of the evening, ROB LIEFELD. How you doing, man?
Rob.
Hey, thank you for having me. Well, good to see all you guys. Good to see you.
Great to see
Likewise.
you.
Thanks.
Likewise. Hey, Rob, you know, I wanted to congratulate you because I listened to 4 of your podcasts today.
Oh, thank you.
I think those are great. And, you know, the funny thing is you started doing those at the same time we started doing this show, right around the mid to late May. And I was wondering why, you know, what kind of got you into wanting to do that? Because I thought they were fantastic. I'm going to listen to them all.
Straight up, it was therapy. I mean, honestly, like, you know, like so many of us, I mean, I got to be honest, man, I always run things in like, what was I doing 12 months ago? What was I doing 12 months ago? I always think about what was I doing this time last year? And I remember last March was scary. We were all scared. We didn't know what was going on. I'm like, are people going to start bleeding profusely through their nose? Like, what is this pandemic going to look like? And it is the first time in my adult life I was really, bummed out, concerned. I got 3 kids. We all have families, right? And so as things settled down, but I was unable to hang with my comic book peeps like you all. I was cut off from them and that regular interaction. So I literally had mumbled something about doing a podcast. And my son goes, Dad, I can get you the mic. You need a Blue Yeti. And I'm like, what's that? And so I said, this podcast will be my therapy. I will talk about comics, act like there's an audience. It'll get me through the day. And just like you guys, because I started watching you guys too. I mean, it's fun. It's created a new outlet, and really any other answer other than my own therapy is a lie. And so I just like talking comics. So I did it into a microphone and I shared it with the world.
Well, there you go. So even GB says Robservations is the top comics podcast in their opinion. Thanks, GB. That's true. I mean, it was really good. And honestly, you're a natural. You're so much better than any one of us combined. You know, maybe even combined. Oh, you were great. I was so impressed. I mean, I felt like you've been doing it forever. You know, you were so smooth, and your knowledge of the hobby and the industry and your insights on things. I loved the last one, the WandaVision stuff. I mean, It was great. It was really fantastic.
The thing is, so having 2, so I have 3 awesome kids, but my 2 boys were raised on Marvel films. My oldest son was really into Green Lantern 10 years ago, the comics, and the movie kind of was the end of his, he walked out of that movie very disappointed. And it was like, I'm not into this anymore. But the Jeff Johns Green Lantern run is the only time I've ever seen him engage in comics. And I was digging it. But otherwise, when it comes to Marvel, their education is all these Marvel films. And so a reporter asked on Twitter if Scarlet Witch was really this powerful around episode 3 of WandaVision. And I said, oh yeah, she's one of the most powerful people in the MCU. And of course, then I had all these movie experts, I like to call them, telling me, well, that's not true. And dude, you're like, go read a comic book and talk to me later, because like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, if all you're doing is watching these movies, then you don't know where. It's like I said on one of the podcasts, this is long form storytelling. You're watching Kevin Feige, whatever WandaVision is it issue 26 of his saga, you know, because everything is built on top of each other. And just like we grew up and discovered just how powerful these characters are, they think if it didn't happen in a movie, it didn't happen and it cannot happen. And now, like and people were like completely like trashing on me. It was so fun to watch. And then last week in the episode, one of the FBI guys goes, well, you know, she's as powerful as Thanos. She could have taken him out. And I'm like, boom. It's because people were like, whoa, if she was that powerful, you know. So it's funny. And I'm like, read the comics, the comic books, these comics behind me on the rack. They're better than all the movies, you know, like just read the comics, get educated. So now I kind of joke with my kids. I go, these podcasts are like my last will and testament for you guys. Like when if you want to know about comics, listen to Dad's podcast. You'll understand all this stuff a lot better. So that's part of it too.
Well, I mean,
and I was reading something the other day about you, Rob, and I was shocked by this. But is it really true that Marvel hired you when you were still in diapers? That was
That's right.
How old were you exactly when?
No, I was fortunate to be. Mark Grunwald hired me at 18 years old at the very first WonderCon. And the truth of the matter is, I went there with some samples to get. I thought this was my shot because I had spent the last couple of years standing next to people have their portfolios reviewed at Marvel and DC. I would go to San Diego. I would go to any of these shows, and if there was an editor reviewing portfolios, I would just stand off to the side. And it was sad to see people argue back with editors. What do you mean I'm not ready? And you know, I would take their, I would hear what the editors were saying to these people, like show me quiet moments. Everything can't be Spider-Man hitting Green Goblin out of a window or on a rooftop. And so it was really these 8 pages of quiet, really people talking heads discussion. I thought I had the stuff. Eclipse Comics, First Comics, Dark Horse Comics. There was this entire, you know, publishers row, and I had my packets, and I drove from Orange County the night before, stayed with my aunt and uncle in San Jose, went to WonderCon the next day because I saw in the Comic Book Buyer's Guide all these publishers were going to be there, and they all literally handed the packets back to me. We're not looking for new talent. We're not, and I'm like, I was literally like, what? This sucks. I'm getting denied. Dick Giordano. So as you come around the bend, there was the DC and then there was the Marvel. And Dick Giordano said, you know what? We're not really looking for new talent here. I'll take your packet with me. And I promise you I'll get back to you. And I was like, okay. And then I literally just started to walk to the exit. And my friend, his name is Hank Canals. He's an executive at DC and has been for the last 10 years. He was there with me. He says, you're not going to go to Marvel? I said, Hank, I know it's a long drive home. Let's just go home. This is terrible. I really thought I was going to have a chance, but none of these publishers are interested in. I mean, like I said, it wasn't like you're not ready. Like literally, I would hand my stapled packet, and they'd be like, "No, thank you." It was like they wouldn't flip through it. Like we're not hiring. So
they don't even look, huh? They don't even look.
Mike, it was just a straight up, we're not interested. That's not what they were there for. But Marvel was. There was a line to meet Mark Grunwald, and he was doing portfolio reviews. And so Hank. I got to be honest, man. He did me a solid. He said, Rob, just stand in line. What do you have to lose? What do you have to lose? So I stood in line. I was about 8 back. You know, a half hour later, I was up there. I handed him my packet. I gave him 11 by 17 and 8.5 by 11 copies of the same story. And Grunwald shuffled the pages. He looked through them. He flipped them. He paused. He shuffled them. And then he put them down. And I'm like, here it comes. And I won't do it now. He stood up, he rose from his chair, and he extended his hand across the table, and he goes, "Welcome to Marvel Comics." And I shit you not, I was like, "What is happening here?" I was like, and he's like,
lottery.
I really like your work. I don't have anything in my bag with you, but I want to get you a solo Avengers backup story. At the very least, he said, I'm going to get you some Marvel Universe handbook stuff, and we'll get you started. He goes, you show a lot of promise. I really like what I see here. And I described the drive home because it was in Hank's car and he drove. I think I hung my head out with my tongue like a dog for 6 hours. I just letting the wind hit me like I'm in comic books. I got hired. I was so like that is the so I was 18 years old. That was April. And,
so you're 18 years old.
Yeah.
And you're like you're a professional, but you're also a fan. Like at 18 years old, you're like
100%.
a huge fan. So
you're reading comic books your whole life, right?
You're like in like this like crazy unique position where you're like you know, you can sort of see both sides of the coin. You know what it's like to be a fan and what it's like to be a professional. At what point did you buy your first page of art? Like what
you know, there was a in my comic store in Orange County, and yes, you understand. I graduated high school at 17. I didn't turn 18 till the following October of 1985, and then I got hired. So the thing is, there at my comic store in Orange County, it was called, I think, Comic Castle. They suddenly one day had an original piece of art on the wall, and it was mounted on this like
foam core or something.
Yes, thank you. And it was I had bought the comic in the 70s. It was remember the patriotic character that DC did called Steel,
Sure.
and it was Steel, the splash page to Steel #4 by Juan Ortiz and Bruce Patterson, and I had never seen, like, so this is like 1982. I had never seen an original piece of art, and that realization that you go, wait, it's that big? That's how big they draw the comic? And
okay.
So I asked my parents if I could have that for Christmas, if that could be my Christmas gift. And Glenn, you know, they played a really good poker face. But what they couldn't keep me from doing was riding my bike there the week before Christmas, and it was gone.
Oh, man.
I just go, I think I'm getting this. So on Christmas of 82, I got that page of art, and I still have it. I should have grabbed it. And because it's a memento, like it's your first page, right? So that was great. And Bruce Patterson, great ink line, because so much of what I love,
very good inker.
Really fantastic, and got to meet him. Got to meet him at several shows that he appeared at here in Orange County. So after that, I started going to shows, and you know, Creation Cons had shows out here. They all, and the great thing is most every pro wanted to come out to Southern California for a weekend during that time. So there was always pretty good guests, and they always brought some cool art. I couldn't always afford it, but from that point on, I started flipping through it, and that was it.
And so you, like, I mean, professionals are like sort of in a different position. Like you have the ability sometimes to trade with other professionals. Like you do that kind of thing, or
I have in the past. Absolutely. I have swapped pages, and I mean, especially during the early days of Image Comics, we would all swap pages, and we would ink each other's pages. And you know, I wish, like, if we had a camera. This happened a couple times. This was the second time this happened. At one of the once or twice a year, the Image partners would get together to just have a business meeting, and we would really all sit in one room around one table and just shoot the shit and talk about what's coming up on the schedule. And this is probably 1994, and Todd would always bring a batch of art of whatever he was working on. And this particular day, he had a Greg Capullo issue because Greg was drawing Spawn. And dude, it was like dealing cards. And he's like, all right, who wants to help old Toddy ink Spawn? Who wants to help it? And like, we would be like, I'll ink a page. And so we would then, he was Tom Sawyer. I always said he got everybody to paint the fence for him, right? And there's that scene in Tom Sawyer where, like, he has to paint the fence, and he convinces all his friends to paint it, and he just stands and watches. And Jim grabbed a page, Mark grabbed a page. This is the second time it happened. The first time is on, I think, the Frank Miller written issue of Spawn. I think it's either 12 or 11. I can show you what we all inked in there. And so then Todd would go like, "I'll keep the page, keep it." And so we would, we'd keep the pages. But we would swap back and forth. Absolutely. It is fun. It actually is more with sketches too. When you have sketchbooks and you're like, dude, you're going to do me a solid, right? My sketchbooks are fantastic. They have some great stuff.
Oh, wow. That is neat.
Wow.
So like, when do you feel like you got like the bug to, like, I know that you're like a huge Byrne fan.
Yeah.
Obviously you discussed that. When do you feel like you really like sort of got the bug in earnest to like really add pieces to your collection?
So I'm brain farting. Who is John's dealer?
Jim
Morton.
Really nice guy.
Right.
So ironically, the only time I saw John Byrne at a show was at like 1982's San Diego, one of those 82, 83. He was the one guy that was very elusive as far as the West Coast. Like Dave Cockrum would come out, or be at San Diego, George Perez, Art Adams, Michael Golden, Mike Zeck, all the Bronze Age heroes of mine. But so once Image broke open, Warden came. We had talked about him coming out, and he came out with a bunch of portfolios to my studio, and I went like batshit crazy buying John Byrne, but he didn't have any X-Men pages. That's the thing. There was no X-Men pages. I bought all the covers to Man of Steel and the Superman #1. I bought all of Alpha Flight #1, which I now see broken up all over the place. I went all in on whatever he had that I thought was the best stuff that he had, but he did not have X-Men stuff. And he really didn't have any Fantastic Four either. So I had some Alpha Flight and the Superman stuff, and for years those sat in a closet that I didn't look in for like 8 years, because my relationship with original art evolved over the years. But I can get to why that stuff all left me as well, because I mean I really thought at 1999 I thought the bottom was falling out of the market. And these are the best prices I'm ever going to get. And I panic sell. I was like, I don't interact with this stuff at all. I haven't looked at it in years. So, that stuff is all gone. But I got to be honest, because you're probably going to ask me this. And I can tell you, there is nothing that I don't like. There's nothing I go, oh, darn, I wish I had it back. If I saw those Man of Steel covers, I admire them, but I don't need them in my life. Like, they were great. I had them. I absorbed them. And it's funny because in the culture with you guys, like the art world, I've met a couple guys who they will tell me, this is my Grail piece. And then I'm like, but wait, you sold your Grail piece 6 weeks later. Like, I don't understand. We have a different Grail pieces. I mean, there's this one guy who contacts me all the time. He's like, oh man, this is a real Grail of mine. And then I'm like, is that why I'm buying it off of Heritage? Like
it's got to be it's got to be your Grail. It's not like just Grail is not good enough anymore. If it's like your Grail, that's
like cash.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I now when this guy says Grail to me, I'm like, we don't think that Grail means the same thing. But in Black Hole Collection, I learned these terms. Okay, see, I'm learning. I'm catching up with you guys. Black Hole Collection are also not what I was led to believe a Black Hole Collection was. So,
yeah.
So Rob, I was going to lead into that because I remember when you were selling Byrne pages in the mid '90s. I didn't remember exactly when. And Eric Stevenson also.
Yes.
Because I think I bought a bunch of things off of Eric. But I was wondering because I was like, Rob's like a huge fan. I didn't know why. And the other thing is, I just want to say personally, I'm glad Jim didn't show you any Fantastic Four. I'm personally glad.
Okay, good. Yeah, no. So in 1999, I threw up my big art booth. I only had it for 1 year, and dude, there was a couple guys that slept. Like they're like, I slept outside overnight to be the first in your line, and also I know Albert was like number 2, and Albert Moy bought like all my Barry Windsor Smith stuff. But I just, I had such a surplus at that time. It was the one time I was a dealer, and I had a ton of art.
You had some Jack Kirby stuff too, didn't you?
I did have some Jack Kirby stuff. I did.
Forever People or something, like a story or
I had is it a complete issue of Mr. Miracle? And so now I'm going to go back. Yeah, that stuff. Okay, that stuff. No Byrne stuff, but the Kirby stuff. Yeah, I would take that back.
You missed that.
Right. And here's the deal. So I had some Dark Knight pages that I had purchased for like $200, and there's a guy that kept upping the offer. I kept turning him down, and then I thought these prices are insane. Now this is now 99. No, maybe 2000, 2001. I thought these prices that he's offering me are, I mean, it's the multiplication on this is ridiculous. So I agreed to, again, part with those pages because I was 30 and I thought the market is going to crash. It also spooked me. I got to be honest, because I came home to my wife after the 2000 Comic-Con, and you guys don't the 2000 Comic-Con, I think in the convention center, the power went off briefly. The air conditioning went off. It was like God was punishing the comic book industry.
That was actually the guy that bought those pages made that happen just to rally.
But just if you guys, we all forget that Marvel had just come out of bankruptcy and they didn't even have their own booth. And they had like a sign up at a video game booth. And I was like, man, I'm really, I came home to my wife and I said, Joy, I'm concerned about the comic book industry. I think like, it's
their stock was like $1 a share back then.
Yeah.
When did the first X-Men movie come out? That was like 2002?
That was 2001.
When did 2?
It came out right before the Spider-Man movie. Spider-Man movie was 2002, so it was either early 2002, late 2001.
Right. I mean, that was a big sea change right there.
Yes,
it was.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I then at that point I did not do comics for 3.5 years. I retired and did not produce it. We started a family, banging out kids, and I just watched the comics industry. I no longer interacted with it. I didn't think like I tell people like the 90s, we burned bright and we burned long and we burned out like all of the guys. And I was kind of the last one to hang up my coat. Silvestri had stopped, Todd had stopped, Jim had stopped. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take a pause. And 2000 turned to 2001, and then 2002, and then in 2003, because I loved the writing of Mark Miller on The Authority, I asked him to write some stuff for me, and then I started publishing again in summer of 2003. But so I really just kind of I took 3 years off. I just kind of sat back and watched and didn't really interact with the comics industry on the level that I had before. That was the birth of the internet too. So I was reading message boards 24/7. You know, I was learning about what was coming out from everybody on the internet.
Wow.
That's true. That was a big deal, man, when the internet came out.
Yeah.
So did you sell all your art at that point or did
no. I kept a lot of cool stuff, but I mean some of it like I said, again, now I see the cool thing about this, Glenn, we share some friends and the original art market is fun to watch. And like I've heard people call it a bubble, and then I heard people grouse about inventory. And I'm like, man, there's tons of inventory. There's tons of it. And Will know what I'm talking. You guys all know what I'm talking about here. There are artists who have not released their pages into the wild. I mean, right. I remember as a kid, when I broke in, they said, hey, Walt Simonson is holding all his art. He's never selling it. And it's 30 years later, and you don't see Walt Simonson art.
Right now, it's still true. Yeah.
He's got it. And then there's the Terry Austin conundrum, where he's got all that stuff holed up. And so you figure 7 pages of every X-Men book is with Terry. Like, and so there's tons of great art, and who knows who's sitting on what, but it is fun to find out who has what. And that's where the Comics Art Fan, where I can't believe that is an amazing forum. It's amazing.
Thanks.
And so it's just really fun. But no, I didn't sell everything. I kept some key stuff. But I mean, then when the fever hits you again, the fever hits you, and it goes from like a casual buying to suddenly like I want to. And I came about this like you come to this realization. You specialize. You go, I'm gonna collect this. I'm gonna focus now on what I'm doing.
Right. And also, I mean, obviously, with like Hollywood calling for your properties, you're like in a better financial position to pick up, many of these things that, even at the escalating prices, I noticed you're picking up things that you just loved as a kid, I assume, that are.
That's really what it gets down to. And yeah, my buddy, he's done very well for himself over the last couple of years. And he was telling me the other day, because I was asking him what he got in the auction. And he said, I didn't get a whole lot. I got this piece. He's like, I just really got to love it at these prices. And I go, that's it. You really, at these prices today. And the pricing is part of the fun, right? But you have to love it. And see, I can only conceal so much from my wife. Okay. And I'm a really good boy, and I don't have hidden account. So I have to go, yeah, hun, I went all in on this piece of paper again. And ironically, she's totally cool. You've met her, Glenn. She's like,
no, she's amazing.
You think it's a good buy? I trust you. She's like,
I've not discussed your art collection with her at all.
No. So anyway, yeah. I mean, I've been buying a lot in the last 6-7 years, but I mean, there's only so much you can get, and then there's like people go, "Are you going to get this next X-Men page in the Heritage auction?" And I go, "Does it have Wolverine on it? Because if it doesn't have Wolverine on it, I'm not your guy. I'm not like." That's a beautiful page, but I know what that's going for. And they're like my favorite. I wish I had a picture of it, but we have a friend and he has a page, and it's $22,000 for this X-Men page that has no X-Men on it. Okay, it has the Phoenix Force. The Phoenix Force is on it, and there's civilians all reacting. And I said, "Really? What are you thinking here?" And you know what? I'm like, I could do half that price, but like at some point you go, I bought a $22,000 page of a pair of eyes. I mean, and some people looking at it, and so I have to not like I'm going to be disciplined and say no, and put that towards something else, right?
Yeah. Right.
Because so now, yeah, I mean, and you can see by the stuff I'm sharing with you, I'm big on. I mean, John Byrne was a big part of my childhood, as I'm sure he was of all of our childhood.
Yeah.
Did you have you ever had a chance to work with Byrne at all? Like,
oh no, I this is out in the open. He openly in the Comic Book Buyer's Guide, when we were all surging, like right there when X-Men and X-Force was coming out, like I always compare comics to sports, and you can see the guys who aren't going to pass the torch gracefully. And he made a comment that when I was like, New Mutants and X-Force are taking off, and he knows what he's doing. He's a smart guy. He gave me one compliment and then one vicious, dig. And he says, "I got to tell you, I thought all the good names in comics were used up, but this Liefeld guy has shown me like there's all these names that I never used before." And then down there he goes, "But if we could drive stakes through his hands and keep him from drawing, we should do that." And that is like in the interview he gave the and Glenn, you guys, I was not offended. I laughed out loud.
Right. Because, well, you have like one of the most optimistic, great attitudes that I've ever seen in any creator or otherwise. But I have to ask this question, given that we talked about, like, does that change? That doesn't change your love for his art, right?
No, not at all. No, look. Again, I go to sports, and probably the sport I love the most. It goes NBA, NFL, baseball. That's how I rank my passions for the sports. And I mean, look, there's guys that just you lace it up, you compete, and we're competing. Everyone wants the sales and the attention. And let's be honest, John Byrne, he had a tremendous peak. It's one of the longest peaks I've ever seen in comic books.
Right.
But I think he felt the new class coming in, and he didn't like any of us. He dissed on Todd too. He did, but no. Here, cut to 1 year later, and I don't mind. Look, you guys, I don't mind saying this, especially it's almost 30 years in the past.
Right.
Eric Stevenson, that you mentioned, Will. We gathered around the speakerphone at Extreme Studios. I was prepared to go all in with John Byrne. I wanted him to do Supreme, my Superman.
Right.
There was about 5 of us. And I'm sweating bullets. I'm calling John Byrne. I've got his number. And I go, boom, put him on speaker. I said, "Hello." He goes, "Hello." I said, "Hey, John Byrne, this is Rob Liefeld." And he goes, and I go, "Oh boy." I would like to offer you $150,000 an issue to draw Supreme for me. And he goes, I've already done Superman. Thank you." And he hung up on me. And I was like, "Rad!" Like, that is rad. Like, we all were like, "Wow!" Because look, I thought I want to show him respect and show, like, I'm going to bring you a big payday, okay? Right. And Image Comics was blowing up. Everything that I was publishing out of Extreme in that first few months was selling 1 million copies, and all the Youngblood books, the spin-off Brigade. So I felt like I could go in, lead with that position, at least show that I respect you. And I mean, that rude, that fast, it was over in 30 seconds. And I was like, okay, well, that'll do it.
What's that expression? You should never meet your heroes kind of thing. Like, you know, like I never got to, like Jack Kirby is a personal hero of mine. I never got to meet him. And I think my hunch is if I did get to meet him, that, you know, from talking to people, he was everything that, you know, I would have expected him to be.
You'd have a different experience. Yeah.
He was an exemplary, Jack was magic. Like I can talk like the couple times I was at the house and the times I was on panels with him, the sweetest, most generous, kindest, like the anti-burn, just the most generous, kind, and wanted to talk to you, wanted to share stories. You know, Jack, God, the coolest guy, man. I mean, literally.
And you got to work with him too, didn't you? Like,
that the first visit to his house is where I saw that he had all. You know, you want to talk about magic. Roz says to me, so we get up there about 2:00 in the afternoon, and we don't leave till midnight. And literally, we had to. Jack was, I think he was so energized because there was about 6 of us. I piled everybody in my truck, and we just went up. My 4Runner. We piled everybody in.
Can you say who was with you? Who was accompanying you?
Well, Eric Stevenson, who's a partner and publisher of Image Comics, was with me at this point, and then a guy named Dan Fraga, who draws comics for me, really talented illustrator. A guy named Richard Horry who worked at the studio, and then from there, honestly, I get fuzzy. But I know there was probably 2 more guys, and so they welcomed us up there, and we, you know, had dinner. But Jack showed us around the house, told us about every picture that was hanging on the wall. But at some point, Roz said, "Hey, I heard you were interested in some art," and so I said, "Oh yeah," and there's the side bedroom that we got from the family room, and just envelopes all over the bed and on the dresser. And you know, this is the best story because my favorite work that Jack did was the New Gods.
Mm-hmm.
And,
love the New Gods.
The origin of Highfather, I think the issue is called The Gift, and it's my favorite issue. It's young Highfather, and I think it's maybe issue 7 or 8. And I said, oh my gosh, I want this. And she, as sweet as she could, she said, "Oh no, honey, that issue's mine." But that's really sweet. And it's like release it back to Roz. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, but it was really sweet. You're like, wow. And because Highfather was in love with it. Like it's a love story. So I thought that was so sweet. She's like, "Oh no, honey, this one's mine." So I looked through some other stuff that they had. That's how I got the issue of Mr. Miracle. But then in like a dresser like that you guys would have, like that has like shirts and socks, there's tons of just Bristol boards and animation stuff he did. And there's this story that is clearly Bruce Lee. It's a Bruce Lee story. And you're like, holy shit, when did he draw a Bruce Lee story? And Roz said, "Oh yeah, Jack really loved Bruce and thought we could do a Bruce Lee story, but we never got cleared by the estate. So he changed the name, and the name change was written in the word balloons." And then I saw all these other kind of disparate pages. They didn't all necessarily fit together. And I said, "Look, is there a world that I can publish this? If you would allow me," I said, "I can get all of my image partners to ink this stuff, and we could all, you know, kind of modernize, just get Jack out to this generation." And she's like, "You would do that?" And I said, "Let's go talk to Jack." And Jack's like, "Sure, sure, that'd be great." And so, you know, I took about 26 pages, and there'd have to be a second trip to get more. But that night, I had just kind of picked out the story, and literally, Eric Stevenson and I are on the way home talking about, well, we can make this one section and this another section, and we can marry these. And we ultimately called up Keith Giffen and said, "Can you do your Jack Kirby style to bridge some of these sequences?" And he's like, "I'm all in." And I mean, everybody. I called Gary Ordway. I called Scott Williams. I called Mark Silvestri, Eric Larson, Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee. Yes, 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 yes. And it's weird because in the ensuing years, they're like, I wish I hadn't have inked it over the pencils. And I'm like, no, it's this whole, I want a separate channel. Like, and we weren't really good on vellum at the time. And there was no printer that was spitting out blue lines.
Yeah.
Right.
So I look, we all inked right over Jack's pencils. And I think that's why the stuff looks as good as it does. And so we came up, we talked to Jack, and Phantom Force would be the name of the project. And he blessed it. And it was all, and I'm telling you, those Bruce Lee pages were like, that's like 1976, 1977 Jack Kirby. That's good stuff.
Wow.
Really
Yeah.
polished.
That's peak Kirby.
Yeah. For me, from like New Gods to his Captain America, Black Panther, Marvel work is like my favorite Jack stuff.
Right.
So look, and it, I think we sold like 600,000 copies and exposed a whole bunch of kids. And I took those issues out the other day and I was flipping through them because we walked through our fans knowing that maybe a Todd McFarlane or Rob Liefeld fan wouldn't be a Jack Kirby fan. So we told them how important Jack was. And,
Great.
John Byrne, you want to know what he said? Because I saw it in his interview. He said the Image guys were looking for relevance, so they co-opted Jack as their project. I'm like, you're such an asshole. But Glenn, I do not get the guy. John Byrne had some magic coming out of this hand for the better part of a decade. Everything he touched is magnificent. And what I've learned also along the way is all of the people who worked with him helped. Whether it was Klaus Janson, Dan Green, obviously Terry Austin. Like, I love getting all the different people that collaborated with John to give different looks because I loved all those books. But yeah, Jack. So again, Jack we had to leave because I felt like he would have kept talking till 1 a.m. And I think Roz didn't want to cut him off because he was having a good time. He was telling us World War II stories. There was a Nazi who was naked that jumped in to the hole with him, and he didn't know what to do. And the Nazi surrendered, and Jack's like, but it's a Nazi. And I'm like, and he was naked, Jack, and he was like, he was naked. He had been, it was like he caught the tail end of a mortar, and it had tattered his clothes. And so we're hearing all these World War II Jack Kirby stories. I mean, where else are you going to hear about a naked Nazi jumping into the hole with you and surrendering in Germany?
That should be in the next MCU Captain America.
Like literally, he should. And so, look, it's great that we're talking about it because I like we have to keep talking about him so people know who he is and his family. Sure. Is so sweet. The kids. I remember getting the call. Larry Martyr, who was the publisher of Image, called me at like 7:45 in the morning that Jack passed away, or 8:30 a.m. And it was like a drop. Oh my gosh, I can't believe he was taken way too young. And so, again, I remember Jack's funeral was like this epic retelling. And if you want to be haunted, I forget which one of the grandkids was, but he's like, before I speak today, like Jack visited me. My grandfather visited me last night, and I got goosebumps, like sitting there in the pew. And he's like, Jack was there, and Cap and Hulk, and they were all standing around my dad, my granddad, and they said, he's gonna be okay. He's with us now. And I'm like, oh my gosh! Like, I mean, the most memorable, sweet, most beautiful ceremony ever. So I mean, look, I'm just fortunate that I made the connection, and I'm going to tell you, just to top this all off, the way I had done some panels with him when I was just breaking in, and I couldn't believe they put me on these panels. And really, all we did was look at him and let him talk. And he had way better things to say than we did. So we'd be like, "Oh yeah," they'd be like, "What do you think, Rob?" I'd be like, "Yeah, what he said." Okay. But in 1992, when the Image comics were launched, I was walking through the aisle again with Eric Stevenson, and Roz waved us down, and she goes, "Wait!" And we stopped right there. And Jack comes from behind his table, and he's in a powder blue suit, dude, like wearing a suit to San Diego, looking dapper as hell. He shuffles out to us, and he goes, "I just want to tell you that what you are doing is what I would have done And I just love what you guys are doing. And I was like, you did do it. I said, you did Pacific Comics. I'm like, you did show us the way, Jack. Captain Victory blew my mind. And he's like, oh, that's nice. And I'm like, he's the nicest guy ever. The sweetest man who to me is Walt Disney, Steven Spielberg, like in one, like important of a creator. We don't,
like with Jack, I think like the most important thing that in my understanding of Jack, the most important thing to him was that his family would be financially okay. Yeah. And I know that he and Roz were really nervous at the time that he died, whether they were going to be financially okay. And I kind of look at it like this, and it's as if, like, I mean, obviously in the 2000s when the Marvel cinematic universe started to hit, that changed their fortunes, and the lawsuit was settled finally, and they were able to get, all the family members got millions. And I kind of look at it like his characters lived on after him in a way, and became so important that they cared for his family in a way that he couldn't, because he wasn't here anymore. But it was his creation that allowed that to happen. It was like these characters that he created years ago sort of like watched out for his family and allowed them to be financially stable. And and I think that's a beautiful story. That's at the end of the day, that's it's his creations that outlived him, that will outlive him now for, in all of us that appreciate them, but specifically cared for his family.
No, and look, that victory, when they finally got the settlement, obviously I would always bow to Mark Evanier, who has the most knowledge. And I met with Mark a couple of times about doing some animated projects, knew Mark over the years. And he asked me to do a panel for the Kirby panel a couple of years back in San Diego. And I got to be honest, there was a couple guys who didn't get the memo. Like, we're not railing against everybody else anymore. And within 10 minutes, it kind of went off the rails. And like, there's guys screaming, like going negative on Marvel. And Mark, because he's kind of the godfather of the crew, Mark Evanier said, hey, we agreed to not do this today, and we're not going to do this. And it calmed the room down, because he's like, Marvel settled with Jack. They took care of him. Maybe it was later than we had wanted.
Right.
And the next year, they gave Jack the Lifetime Achievement Award at D23 and really went out of their way to give him his place. But I still believe, as his stuff continues to get made, people will know him better than they do now. Because we just gave him 30 minutes, and we can give him an hour, and we can give him 2 hours, and I'm never going to stop talking about him. And my peer group, everybody knows how important he is. So we just continue to educate, and let people know that there was this phenomenal talent that did more work than any 5 artists put together, and the consistency and the imagination. Like, to me, Jack, best storyteller, best costume designer, best choreographer. I mean, and the way he would state pages, my storytelling took a giant leap when Jim Valentino, I shared a studio with him from like 88 to 90. And Jim said, you need a lot more Kirby in your work. You need to understand what you're doing. And he gave me Fantastic Four 1 through 101. And he said, over the weekend, you're going to look at all these. You're going to absorb this, and you're going to understand. You don't need 5 or 6 panels. You're taking too much time. Look at the brevity of his storytelling. Look at the way he establishes things. Look at the information that he puts in. He goes, stop trying. He said, stop trying to be George Perez. Only George makes that 10-panel shit work. He said, study. Like, Jack is the best storytelling, like, school you're going to go to. And I'm telling you, man, I got what he said. He said, don't look at anything but the storytelling. And again,
that's funny, because I see a lot of the kinetic energy that Jack has in your work. I mean,
it happened that weekend. That was my, like, when I began, like, I get it. Oh my gosh, the camera angles, the way, even now, dude. I mean, I got so much Kirby in this office. It's ridiculous. Like, the power in the figures. It's kind of what's missing from comics now. I mean, little sidebar, like, the action has been kind of removed from comics, and Jack, everything moved. That's what I'm trying to say. Whether it was the gesture, where he put the camera, the motion was always.
I totally agree. And you have that in spades. And yeah, you're right. I mean, like, that decompressed storytelling just feels like like for old school guys like myself, like, like where's the battle scene? Like they're going to talk us to death for like an entire issue, and so
what's up the moves, right?
Yeah.
So
I just had one anecdote. I've mentioned it a couple of times, Rob. I just wanted to share it with you real fast. I loved a story, John. This is late 60s now. John Romita, John Buscema, Jack Kirby are at the Marvel offices, and they're just doing a regular drawing and everything. And Jack Kirby stops them. He goes, guys, one day these boards we're drawing on are going to be in museums.
Wow.
Jack Kirby told them that. And John Buscema and John Romita says, we looked at each other and we said, Jack is nuts. And he goes, and then John says, when I see him now, he goes, Jack was right and we were wrong. He goes, just the foresight that he had to know that what they were drawing, what people thought, wasn't even worth $1 back then.
Right.
He knew that this stuff was going to be sought after, and in the future that this is going to be something special, and how right he was, right?
Yeah.
No, and that can pivot too, because this is one of my favorite non-Jack stories is so I think it was summer of 87, 88. It's either right before I broke in or right after. And a bunch of guys who I had seen on the circuit had taken me under their wing. Mike Zeck and Jerry Ordway, I think, were entertained by me as a young fan. That's the only thing I can tell you, because they would be like, hey, come to this Marvel party, come to this DC shindig. But on the middle of the floor of a Saturday of maybe 1987, because I think Jerry was doing Superman at the time. Jerry's got everyone else has a portfolio. Jerry has like this briefcase. And Ordway pops open and he throws me a hot pink shirt and he goes, put this on, wear this, wear it with pride. And it says, give Jack his artwork back. And it had his face on it. And I was like, this is awesome. I will totally wear this. Like, and then because it was that whole, Jack's art was being held by Marvel and they weren't releasing it to him. And again, Roz had said that so much of that had already sold, because so much of what was in the room was DC Comics, was Commandy, was Mr. Miracle, was Forever People, that New Gods issue. But no, the entire industry has risen up for him time and again. So it like you said, he knew how important that artwork was, and that war was waged on his behalf to shame Jim Shooter, whoever was in charge, to returning it to him.
Right.
And that's a great story. And I still have that shirt. I should have worn it tonight. It's great. It's very, very.
It's not too late, Rob. It's not too late.
We promised everyone that we would show some pieces from your collection. So maybe we should pop up some pieces. You can tell us,
Sure.
How you feel about them, I guess.
The great thing, and I've seen you guys do this too. And on Facebook and in Comic Art Fans, all the different forums. I love when people go, "That's my page," and I go, "Oh, okay." I feel bad.
My page.
There's different people who are like, "I had that page. I sold that page," and I'm like, "Okay, I believe I know what black hole means." So I'm fairly certain these are staying in my black hole. So whatever you're going to show, I intend on, they're not going anywhere.
These are probably your pages. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, no. At this point in life, I feel like, I got 3 kids that they're taken care of now. So now it's time for Dad to have some fun again. And again, some of the stuff you guys, the stuff that I've gotten in the last couple of years, I can't even imagine how much like you said, I am bullish. I believe the art is going to continue to go up in value. I do.
I think so too.
So
no, without question. I believe so. Yeah.
Thank you. I figured I would talk to the 4 wise men and you guys could confirm for me.
I always say for her, it's nice having pages where you can actually read the word balloons,
Yes, for
that
sure.
means a lot to me.
Yeah. I love that. I love the pasted on stuff.
Every page has its own story, I always tell people.
That's it. And I didn't give you some of the pages I didn't share with you guys. I have some Logan's Run stuff that George Perez and Klaus Janson did, but Mike, every word balloon is falling off the page.
Oh, yeah. When they're not drawn, yes.
Yeah.
I'm like, I got to paste these all back on and hope that when I take it out, they don't all like that. I have an Aquaman cover that I showed you guys, and I tilted it up to take a better picture, and the DC bullet dropped all the way down, and I'm like, okay, got to readjust.
Reattach.
I love
It's
this
interesting
stuff.
how Marvel only did that for like 2-3 years. Like if guys, I'm just thinking in my head like roughly like 76 to 79 or so is when all the word balloons were on and glued and yellowed and would fall off. It was only like a few year period where they weren't drawing them; they were putting them on stats and gluing them.
Yeah,
a couple of years only they did that.
Almost everything I have is glued on. Very few of them.
Mid 70s is when they were doing all that.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at some art here.
Look, yeah.
Hey.
Oh.
Neil Adams.
Okay, I don't know where you guys fall. Neil is the best illustrator the business has ever seen, in my opinion. Like, there's nothing he does not draw well. And this book hit me as a kid, and I don't see these out in the wild, which is why I had to have this page.
Right.
Not as often. Yeah.
I don't see Superman Muhammad Ali pages like, I mean, if any of you guys want to confess that you have some, I'd love to see them.
Nah. I wish
I said
could.
everybody remember those treasuries. If you were kids in the 70s, everybody remembers those treasuries at the deli, you know, because they weren't on comic racks.
That's it.
Yeah.
And
That was my first introduction, was the treasuries a lot to the comics back in the day.
We are speaking the same language, Mike. That
Yes.
I'm telling you. Except my parents. So I tell people, I grew up in my early comic collecting era. There was a corner, and it's so funny. This guy on my podcast, I mentioned this, and he went to Google Earth, and he saw exactly what I was talking about, and he showed me on Twitter. He's like, "Hey, you're right. There's an intersection of Magnolia and Broadway in Anaheim. There was a Pizza Hut that's still there, but then there was a Stater Brothers market, like grocery store, and then there was a liquor store and a 7-Eleven. And the 7-Eleven and the liquor store and the Stater Brothers all carried comics. But the liquor store, which I was never supposed to go in, but I went in regularly, and they knew me. They'd be like, "Yeah, there's that little kid again coming in here." I'm like 7 years old, rolling into the liquor store, reading comics and leaving with as many as I could. But Superman, Muhammad Ali, Superman, Spider-Man, that was in the magazine rack of the liquor store. 7-Eleven didn't carry him. Stater Brothers didn't carry him.
I remember that, and the famous first editions, all that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I just, this stuff is crazy. So I believe, page to page, you guys can fight me, Superman Muhammad Ali is the single best illustrated comic book of my life. Like, I hold it in the highest of regards. I think Neil, whatever he was possessed, inspired, like, every page is that double pager where they're walking through the Bronx, and it's just people walking by the market, and you can see the fruit in the baskets, and it's insane. This is so when I was able to get a page from this book, I jumped on it. I had to have it. And he draws the best Superman to me. Like, Neil is the best Superman art. Like, I know a lot of people lean in on his Batman stuff. And then I learned later, this is the only interior Superman story he ever did. And I'm pretty sure you can vet. He did a ton of covers, but he never did an interior Superman story.
So no record album inserts for Neil and Superman.
You know what? That's interesting. I don't know about that. I just know he didn't draw an issue of Superman or Action.
Yeah, no, that's correct. Yeah, no, you're right.
So that in that book, again, when I grabbed it, I just could not. It is so amazing. And even as a kid, because I was already buying like X-Men, I could tell I'm like, these backgrounds are inked by Terry Austin. Like, and I wouldn't get that confirmed for like years, but like you could tell like the figure inks were different than all the background inks. Mm-hmm. And again, my obsession is learning all about Neil's studio. My obsession of the last 5 years, and Neil can tell you, I will park myself at his booth and just start going over questions with him about who inked what page and who did this. And when you have the tribe, I'm trying to get some of these Tarzan pages that he inked over John Buscema, because those are, oh my gosh. Like, and Neil's awesome. Neil goes, "Well, you know, Rob, I was everybody's best inker." He's like, nobody inked John Buscema better than me. Nobody inked Gil Kane better than me. Nobody inked Gene Colan better than me. I'm like, I'm not going to argue with you. Like, when Neil, he had he like John Buscema still looks like John Buscema, but you can tell Neil that polish. I go crazy for that stuff. So I'm obsessed with all the people that came through his continuity studios. And, you know, like you said, you mentioned the records, like the records that we were getting as the Power Records stuff that he did. Like I think some of that, maybe that was Mike Nasser, and then he finished it. Like, because again, when you learn how prolific that studio was, from the advertising to the comic book work, and like I said, the Tarzan issues and the Conan issues he did, anything he did over Buscema, is that how you guys say it? Do you say Buscema or Buscema, or am I saying it right?
People say both.
Yeah.
I think I actually have there's one Thor issue that I think Neil John Buscema on too, like issue 181. I have a page to that.
Okay, I'll be in my garage digging through those Thor issues right after this.
I think issue 180 or 181 is Buscema Adams, I believe.
You know what fascinated me about that treasury that you love, that we all love? The cover, just identifying all the celebrities from Telly Savalas to Sonny and Cher to on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
Well, I remember just sitting there, cover, then looking at the inside to see.
Yeah. You open it up to see the back.
Trying to figure out the shape of the head, and I think I know who that is. And
And I got to tell you, Neil, I'm going to tell you, man, of the guys in the game, as for as old as Neil is, he is kicking righteous ass. Like I watch his live feeds and talking to him, he's still performing. He's like, you know, why would I get off the stage? I can still completely execute. I can draw beautifully. And when I would sit and talk to him, he'd be inking at the show. He'd be doing Lois Lane's hair on some Superman project a couple of years ago. And I'm just like, I just think there's a lot of guys drop off. Like even some of my favorites have hit a wall. And I'm like, Neil just keeps punching through walls. I think that Superman Muhammad Ali stuff is prime, like primo. And again, I love when the artists mash up like I was at Saul's and he had some Green Lantern pages. And I said, is this the Bernie Wrightson inked Neil Adams stuff?
84.
Yeah. And he's like, nope, not it. Cause I'm like, it didn't have the page number on it. And I couldn't tell by the line work. Cause I love when these guys would jam and ink each other, or so that stuff is special to me.
Yeah.
Bill, throw up another page. Maybe like something Vern.
Can't disagree.
We do have some Vern.
Hey.
Oh, it's
Star-Lord.
Neil. Okay.
Oh, Star-Lord this stuff was killer. That magazine, again, that's a liquor store purchase for me. No, the liquor store was funny, man. I mean, I'm on my skateboard. Like, it's so funny. My parents would say, "You can't get this comic," and the next day, I'm like, "I'm getting this comic. You're just not going to know about it. I'm just going with my lawnmower money." But yeah, that Star-Lord job is one of the best. Like, the best John Byrne jobs. And again, in one of the X-Men omnibuses, Marvel has done these great X-Men omnibuses. I think it's the second or the third one. They would let different contributors write. I think the only guy who hasn't contributed is Byrne, but Terry Austin wrote that this is the job that got them the X-Men. That Archie Goodwin, I'm like, I can't believe this, and I shared it with a Facebook group. I'm like, look at this, you guys. After the Dave Cockrum Giant Size X-Men, the Len Wein Claremont relaunch, they were going to cancel X-Men again, and Terry tells about that Archie called John Byrne and Terry Austin in based on the strength of this Star-Lord story, and goes, guys, I don't want to have to cancel X-Men again, but it looks like we're going to have to cancel it because it's late, it's bi-monthly, and we're not getting the sales traction. And he said, would you guys take this book over? And he said that Byrne wanted to do X-Men but didn't want Terry to ink him. And he said he wanted a softer brush line that would be more of a transition from Dave Cockrum. And he said to Archie Goodwin, I want Terry to ink Marvel Team Up over me. And Terry and Archie Goodwin's like, yeah, that's not what we're doing here. You guys on X-Men or no, the two of you together. And Terry's like, right there, like a decision that changed my life. Like, and he said like how he wasn't even a fan of the X-Men characters, but he loved working with John. And once they were signed, it took off. And so like this Star-Lord job, I mean, again, from Terry's own words, is so resonant. And I can imagine why. I mean, I kind of think that Terry Austin comes from the future because people still don't ink as good as this. Like the lines that he was producing in the 70s and the 80s can't be replicated by people today. It is like he did stuff with crow quills and he would alter the nibs and make custom inking tools. And he's just because at one point my buddy goes, it feels like you're more of a Terry Austin fan than anybody else because you have so much Terry Austin in your collection. And I'm like, I think that's the truth now. I think maybe I'm the biggest Terry Austin fan because these finishes are crazy. He's so good.
You know what I take seriously, Rob? If you've seen originals that Austin's inked, that Terry's inked, of either Byrne or George or others, when he writes in the margins, great job, George, or great, I mean, Terry Austin's impressed with the pencils, so they must be something pretty special, and was thrilled to ink them.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's it. Will, I mean, like, people forget he was extremely prolific too. Terry did a ton of work, and Jim Shooter was quoted as saying that a Terry Austin inked cover would bump a book's sales by 15,000. And I'm like, I believe it, because as a kid, I'd be like, oh, I wasn't planning on buying Doctor Strange, but that's a Terry Austin ink cover. And I mean, I grabbed it. I really do believe he was the first like superstar inker. I think Terry Austin was the first superstar inker. And like, I know that he learned from Dick Giordano, and you can see where he just took everything Dick taught him and again, put that newfangled, that crisp, clean line that whether it was Marshall Rogers, John Byrne, Frank Miller, like it always, he had a way of composing it. It was still them, but there was always a Terry Austin stamp on it.
He always enhances. He should be called the enhancer, really.
I agree. I think he's, and it's funny, I'm in an art group with a couple of the Bronze Age inkers. I will not name them, but they grouse. One guy's like, look, I'm going to tell you right now, if I had inked that X-Men stuff, you would think I was the best. And I'm like, I don't want to let you down, but that's not true. I'm sorry, but I will not indulge your fantasy. That's not true. Like, you're not Terry. Terry's great. You're great too. But Terry was like,
right.
Don't be telling me
throw up an X-Men page. That's
you know who's on level with Terry perhaps and was just taken too soon was the great Gene Day.
Will, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
I have Gene Day pages. I thought they were very similar as well. I thought Gene was kind of the closest, to Terry. So yeah, this X-Men. Okay, dude, like this, I had to have this. This was in a recent Heritage auction. Look at that. I mean, that middle panel. You don't get that. Yeah. You don't get that often. Like, come on, you're getting the whole team, and then these great Colossus. I mean, again, and this is my childhood. This is peak. Like, for me, the best Byrne is 77 to 1982. That is his like biggest flex.
Totally agree.
So this stuff is just magic. It's absolutely
little pinch of 1983 also, but I totally agree. Yeah.
I mean, that you don't get these group shots often. I mean, that's just a killer page.
Not with everybody in the panel, yeah.
That fourth panel looks like he's just going to go through whatever he lands on, whether it's a silo, a dock, whatever. He's just going straight through like a nail.
And again, Will, the great thing about Terry and all these pages, occasionally, for whatever reason, and you don't know what he was thinking at the time, it goes from India ink to marker. He grabbed and maybe the tool was malfunctioning and he had to meet the deadline, and so he picked up, and sometimes the marker is blue like a flare back from the time, like flare pins. Or I mean, and I know later you can see on some of the pages I have, because when I was breaking in, George Perez told me he was inking in Rapidographs, technical pens. So what did I do? I went to the store and I made sure that I bought a bunch of technical pens because I wanted to replicate that line. And on some of these pages, you see where Terry is also using, because a technical pen leaves a mark underneath it. It has a traction because it's rolling. It's got a ball on it, but it's giving you India ink. So,
love this page. I love this page.
Yeah, Wolverine is.
Love this storyline.
I was doing some promotion for Deadpool's 30th anniversary today with Marvel, and we got into like Deadpool, and I just said, look, I called Marvel up and I said, can I give Deadpool, the same healing factor and have him be part of the same program? And back then it was like, yeah, do whatever you want, Rob. And I said, like, Wolverine is my favorite character of all space and time, period. End of story. So like that is for a page like this where you get a couple of great shots with him in the mask, and then nobody drew Logan better, like the Logan persona than John Byrne. Like
the mutton chops, just the perfect mutton chops.
The final panel with that expression is so awesome.
Oh, and the hair and the intricacy.
The hair,
I mean, he's just the line. Obviously, John Byrne. I mean, the storytelling on this page is magnificent. The establishing shot, the talking heads, the Nightcrawler teleporting, but then that Terry Austin finish is just, it's insane.
I think I was 10 when I read this story, and this page was burned into my head when he removed the helmet and then that last panel. I mean, just perfect. And of course,
really
Wendigo.
It was really burned into your head, Will.
There you go. Boom, boom. So yeah, no, this is a great one. So yeah, these pages, I have 4 pages from this issue, and I know where other pages are, and like that's one of those, speciality things. I'm scheming how to get more pages because getting consecutive, like, and I have the 4 that I have are consecutive. They're in order.
Oh,
so,
nice.
And again with the X-Men battling Krakoa. I mean, that was a seminal giant size X-Men. That was a liquor store purchase. And I was not into the X-Men prior to them doing the international team. And I remember going, what's this? And I'll tell you what I'm missing is a really great Dave Cochran page. Those are super hard to obtain. Okay.
First run or second run?
His first run.
Okay. Yeah.
Man.
That's
I
great.
This is the page before the one we just showed, and again, that bottom panel. I mean, this issue we all remember as kids. What an epic retelling of their origin, right?
Yeah, their whole entire story.
And so here's the cool thing. So a couple guys in a burn group that I shared this with, one guy is really heavy duty shaming me, to peel off some of these panels, and he goes because he's like more of a like burn historian than any of us. And he's like, under these 2 middle panels on this page are different panels because they changed the story. And so sure enough, I put it on my light table, and there are very clear panels that are different than these 2 underneath here. But I'm not going to remove the I'm fine looking at them through a light table. But
are those middle panels are they drawn or are they statted?
They're fully drawn and inked.
Yeah.
And these are pasted over. These 2 panels are glued on top.
Gotcha.
Because they had to change the panel because they changed what was happening with Jean is walking with Scott in the panels underneath these right here.
Because she lived in the other version, right?
Yeah. And Byrne was already well into this issue. So after Shooter, right before they were publishing 137, then they had to go back and change what was happening in 138. So really cool. Like there's some great history here.
So I'm not suggesting that you do this, Rob, but you could send that page to a restorer and have the 2 panels put on an
acetate overlay,
and then you could just kind of you could look at them both ways. You can flip them up.
Glenn isn't suggesting, but he's going through the details.
No, see, here's the thing. I feel like I'm the guy that guy spills the ink on the page. So like, I feel like just my luck. I'll be the guy that goes, this hasn't happened to me in 25 years, but I totally.
All right. Listen, it's good suggestion.
This page is before the page you just saw. The other page is boring, so I didn't send you guys. I was sending you guys. I felt like I was giving you guys too much art to begin with. So,
Never.
137 pages. I love this book. I love that it retells the origin of the X-Men. It's so again, I just love this stuff.
Yeah. Now this was a great issue because this was, if you had never read the X-Men, here's your chance to catch up. Here's the Cliff Notes. And guess what? They're illustrated by John Byrne and Terry Austin and written by Chris Claremont. So I mean, this was like, you could catch up on everything X-Men that happened the previous 15 years.
And the thing that, like, because you mentioned Eric Stevenson, because we have talked so much about John Byrne and Marvel Comics of that age, we used to say, hey, Eric would go, and Rob, remember, he did all that in 17 pages. I mean, the entire creative team, Claremont, Byrne, these are.
And the first couple pages weren't the flashback. It was like starting at the graveyard.
But every issue, think about those Savage Land pages. It's like, here's a splash page, here's a double page splash. And I'm still now, I have 14 pages left to give you all of the excitement that's going to generate, like, blow your mind. That era of Marvel, those guys, Perez, Simonson, Miller, operating on 17-page limitations, blew our minds.
Era parents. That's what they
I got
were.
this one from Mike. Mike,
Hey, that looks familiar.
I traded art with Mr. Mike to
Yes.
get this, and I am so grateful. So yeah, this is in my black hole, Mike. No, again, another page. This issue blew me away as a kid. So, we're all just collecting our childhood, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
and it also happens to be, and because I've seen all your guys' collections, our childhood is spectacularly drawn. So
Yeah.
it's fun to have this stuff and then know that it's it really energized you as a kid, and it's also a great piece of art. So
Do you know what this splash tells me, Rob? Is that, when people would say, oh, John Byrne only can draw 2 or 3 different faces. Wrong.
Right. Exactly. Oh, look at that. I mean, yes,
Yeah.
look at the variety here. Yeah. I would, and John would talk about it all the time. It clearly bothered him because people mentioned that. But again, it's just like, do your thing. We know how good you were, man. The people who loved you, we knew how good he was, and he just had that connection. I always tell people, like, when John Byrne first hit, I recognized the Neil Adams in him, especially in this Uncanny world. But I also what I was watching at the time was a lot of Japanese cartoons that were on PBS. Whether it was Battle of the Planets, that G-Force stuff.
I loved Battle of the Planets.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I still know the theme song, Rob.
Don't sing it, Mike.
Don't sing it, please.
If you sing it, Mike, I'm going to sing it, and then it's going to get ugly fast.
Don't encourage him, Rob, please.
Battle of the Planets.
No. please.
And 7 Zark 7, who's not supposed to look exactly like R2D2, but does.
Yes, I love Battle of the Planets.
But that was my exposure to, like, more of a Japanese animated
Yeah.
look, and I felt like John combined, like, what was going on in anime at the time in the late 70s with, like, this Neil Adams aesthetic, because the women all had big Japanese animation eyes. All of John's,
Yes.
and it was like no style I had ever encountered, and got me again. Just, this is magic to me. This era is just absolutely insane.
It is. Agreed.
Yep.
Completely agree.
And before that, Rob, it was Speed Racer.
Dude, okay, that's it. Speed Racer and Simba the White Lion.
Yes. I know the thing that Simba too from the Banana Splits.
Yes, and
Racer.
for me, the last one was Mentor. I like Glenn. You missed your calling too.
I know.
But okay, so Will, did you tell me before the show that this used to be your page?
Yeah, the whole book. The whole book.
Wow.
So, like, to me, like, the Inhumans are, like, one of my favorite teams ever. And I remember the first time I saw them was on a Fantastic Four cartoon, on a repeat of one of those 60s cartoons. They did an episode, and I'm like, wait, they live in a mountain? And whoa! I mean, again, just the imagination and the visuals of Kirby and Stan. And so I was on the market for a great FF page, and then I'm like, are you kidding me? This has the Inhumans. I remember, again, turning the page, because I think this is page 2 of the issue, and you're like, oh my gosh, there's the whole family coming down the steps. So I love this. And this is before John, because, again, we've all seen a lot of this Fantastic Four art is coming out. And John started off with technical pens too in his first few issues, and then went to, like, brush, and then later he went heavy on the marker. And the last couple of years on the FF, I mean, and I've seen some of those pages, they're turning purple. But this is he's still using brush and India ink on these pages, and this is a period where he was really inking himself as good as he ever would.
I
So-
agree. You know, it's funny. When I bought this issue years ago, Jim had it. People passed on it. I wasn't the first one to get to it because it didn't have heavy FF action. It was more Inhumans, and there wasn't a great
it's
splash.
because there's no Triton. It's missing.
No. Triton is on the very first and the very last page of the story. He's in the underground river tunnels of the moon.
Yes.
I'm saying on this particular page.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying that's why people didn't want the whole story at the time, and this is one of the first complete stories I picked up, actually.
See, I'm telling you where I am right now. Like I told CB Cebulski a couple years ago, he's like, you know, what do you still favor? And I say, dude, the Fantastic Four, the Inhumans, all the Stan and Jack stuff is like my wheelhouse. And I look at this right now, I could make this team work like that. The Inhumans just aren't given the spotlight they deserve because there's no shortage of power and action in this lineup, right?
I
mean,
hear a project coming on here, Rob.
Yeah,
This sounds like something you should be involved in.
I'm still, you know, it's like Tom Brady said the other night, you know, or a couple of years back, he's like, well, when I think I suck, I'll retire. And like I said, I've seen some guys whose, whether it's their eyes or their hands get shaky and their work isn't the same. And I feel like I'm still enjoying the work I'm putting out. I'm really, because of the guys who have fallen short, I'm really trying to put extra time into maintaining. And I feel like, because I don't want to embarrass myself, if it gets to the point where I'm like, oh man, this stuff looks like it's not working, I'll just put it down. I'd rather not contribute to a poor pile of work. But I'm like, I feel like I have a few years left. And so I tell like these guys, like, let me, like, give me 4 issues. Like, just give me 4 issues. I'll make it work. So I mean, the Inhumans are great. I feel like they are an untapped. I know Marvel's tried a couple times to activate them, but they're that's the reason I have that page is because the Inhumans will. So thank you. Mm-hmm. I love it, and I love the Fantastic Four on the top too. I mean, it's such a beautiful page.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody since Jack has really been able to find the magic of how the Inhumans work, and
he did the best.
Sure. I would love to see you put that together.
And you said Triton. Dude, Triton as a kid, I loved him. He was everywhere he appeared. I would buy whatever comic Triton
he's
was
the creature from the Black Lagoon. Except he could speak.
Right. I love that. I love that issue that John Buscema drew in Submariner 3, I think it is.
Yeah,
with
Submariner.
When they're swinging at each other on the cover. Oh my gosh. Yeah, no. I mean, Big John. Do you guys have a lot of Buscema? Do you have a lot of good Buscema?
I have some.
It's his stuff. Like I said, I'm really on a John Buscema bend too, but it's got to be the right stuff.
We'll have to talk.
Okay, I'm here.
Oh.
hey, before we
stashing.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on I know we don't talk. I mean, you know, Deadpool's probably one of your greatest creations. Did you enjoy the first 2 movies? Did they?
Oh no, you know what? So we are coming up on the
number 3.
Well, 3's is coming up. 3's definitely moving forward, and but this in 2 days I think is the 5-year anniversary, and look, I'm not dropping. Like I just couldn't believe what you guys want to talk to me about this. Like E Entertainment wanted to interview me today about the 5-year anniversary of Deadpool, and again in the world we live now, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, we get reminded this is what you were doing 7 years ago, this day, this hour, this is what you were doing 12 years ago. It's great to see my kids so much younger and going, why can't I go back to that? But occasionally, like right now, all the Deadpool, the week that movie came out, the thing I love the most about it is because all of the premiere pictures were loading up on my wife and I, our memories in the last couple of days. And look, Fox flew us to New York, put us up in the most fabulous hotel. We went to this, great premiere, and there was activities that whole weekend, week building up to the movie. But the thing is, even the night of the premiere, they didn't it wasn't a really big, it was on the smaller end of premieres, like a movie you don't quite believe in. And everybody who made the movie, all those guys, they had fought for that movie. They had worked so hard. And I had gotten to know all of them over the course of a decade because it took almost 10 years to get it made. And so the writers, Ryan, everybody, but there was still you're walking the red carpet, everyone's getting their pictures taken. And I'm telling you, the vibe was still nervousness because it's like, is what we have here going to work? And I have gone out on a limb and told everybody, because you understand back here, this is a big deal. Since when I was on the set earlier in that year, I said, you guys, looking at what they were filming, I go, this movie's going to open at $75 million. It's going to be a massive hit. And they're like, shut up, Liefeld. Stop jinxing the movie. You don't talk about the opening when you're filming a movie on set. And I'm like, okay, I didn't get the memo, but I'm telling you guys. And literally, like Ryan would talk in the press when the movie was about to debut about how the budget was so small. I mean, Deadpool was made for $52 million. And trust me, they had to squeeze every dollar of that. And my favorite quote, it was, I think, in the LA Times when Ryan was doing press for the movie before it came out. He said, our budget on Deadpool was other movies' cocaine budgets. And I'm like, that is the best Ryan Reynolds answer ever. Like our movie was the drug budget for other films. But so then the movie played to the audience, and I'm telling you, they filled up 2 houses worth of fans. They called it a fan event, the premiere, and people went crazy. And finally, I think everyone was like, well, maybe we have something here. And I'm telling you, man, 3 days later, that movie, my friends from Fox, this is when I learned how good they are. They can take a Friday afternoon and with their, equations and knowing how many, they go, Rob, we're on set for this much on Saturday. You're going to do this much on Saturday night. Sunday is going to bring in this. And they're like, on a Friday evening, they're like, we are set for $150 million opening. And I'm like, what? And now Ryan Reynolds is a freaking mogul. He owns liquor companies, telephone companies.
Yeah, the telephone company. Yeah.
I think he owns a soccer team now. I saw before I came on, he was showing like the birth of a mogul. He's a freaking mogul. Like, and he earned it. I mean, he never gave up on Deadpool. He knew that was his role. He knew he would own in it. And it changed all of our lives, 100%. Glenn alluded to, 100%. And his dedication to it is fantastic. And the great thing is, like, somebody asked me today, like, about the third movie. And I'm going to tell you right now, you can't make Ryan make a movie he doesn't want to make. He doesn't need it. He's like when George Clooney sold his liquor company for $1 billion and disappeared for 6 years. Like, he doesn't need to make anything he doesn't want to do. So if Deadpool 3 is going to happen, it's going to happen on his terms. It's going to be what he likes. Because he's the curator, of the character. He is Deadpool. Like, that's, and I was joking.
It's such a good turnaround story too, because I mean, if you look at Green Lantern, you thought like, oh my God, like he's never gonna do like a superhero movie again, and then Deadpool comes out and he just totally turns it on. It's just
hey, he was
Deadpool pokes fun of Green Lantern. That's what's even better.
Oh, the end of it where he shoots himself in the head is classic.
Dude, that was spectacular. Like,
that was awesome.
Everyone knew that was going to go over huge.
Thank you, Canada.
He had such a good time with the character. But like I said, he poured everything he had into it. And looking back, you understand, it's a miracle. So Deadpool 1 came out in 2016 and Deadpool 2 came out in 2018. That is ridiculous in today's stand. They made a huge follow-up sequel that was a huge crowd pleaser, like literally, and had it in theaters 2 years later. And I know because Fox was like, we've got to move forward with this as fast as we can. And the thing about Ryan, though, like I was saying, like Tom Holland is great. He looks the part. He's the best Peter Parker. But you guys know we all grew up with a Spider-Man that had a great wit and was a smart ass and could give the quips and the put downs and the insult you. Well, I'm not. Tom Holland is that guy in real life. Ryan is Deadpool 24/7. That mouth of his, that is him. He has that wit, and I've been there with him. Like, he will make up words and sly phrases and put downs, and like I'm just like, oh dear God, please never let me come under that tongue. It will slice and dice me in ways I will never recover. He is.
I bet a lot of the words in the movie are probably ad-libbed.
No, I am in the most minuscule part of a scene in the first film. And of course, as Glenn knows, all you guys on movie sets, it takes 3 hours to film 2 minutes. But TJ Miller, who was playing the bartender, they would ad lib and recut that scene. They would, next take, never the same. Always, like you said, ad libbing, changing it up on the fly because his mind and his mouth. So he really is. And I was joking with my wife when we were looking at this today. I'm like, in like a decade, you've had 3 Spider-Mans. And now you're making a Batman movie with the third Batman in a decade, right? Because you've had Bale and Affleck and now Pattinson. And it's like 3 Batmans, 3 Spider-Mans. And there's Ryan just going, I'm Deadpool for life. Like, he's one Deadpool. It's pretty hard to come by nowadays. I mean, he's so it's
you
pretty
can never get somebody to replace him. That would be never.
And I think he knows it. He's aware. He owns that role.
That's awesome.
Wow.
You have more art?
I actually do have a few other pieces here.
Oh, okay. So you got this is inked by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. Okay.
Yeah.
That was my complete selling point on these pages. Like I said, the theme of I love the mashups, man. Neil Adams inking John Buscema. Garcia Lopez inking John Byrne. Like that to me, like this is historic. I mean, you're getting 2 master guys jamming, and I can see the Garcia Lopez, and I can see the Byrne.
Yeah.
Like so, this. I remember when this story came out, and I'm like, what? Like one of the greatest artists of all time is inking one of the greatest artists of all time. So these Titan pages to me were like instantaneous. I had to have them.
And the strange thing about these pages were they did not get the financial love until the last few years. These were like really cheap up until just 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I feel like I still got in on the. I mean, they weren't not. Also, I believe if these were Marvel characters, I'm paying double. And trust me, I've talked to whether it's Mike or Glenn or this is the first time I'm really talking to you, Will, but also Bashara, all these guys, like. I have learned the Marvel art is worth more. Okay.
Oh yeah.
That's how I will pay more for a George Perez Avengers page than a George Perez Teen Titans or Justice League page. Period.
Absolutely.
End of story. And so I think like I don't feel like I got taken on these pages. They weren't cheap, but they weren't exorbitant. But like I said, Will, I think if this was an Avengers page, Byrne and Garcia Lopez, forget it.
Forget it. Yeah.
But I love these. I love the Titans. I'm this was the one time that John did the Titans, or one of the few times. And like I said, the Garcia Lopez on top of it is just that's just the cherry on top.
Love Jose's work. These
are oversized. These are really big pages. These are oversized. They don't fit in any portfolios. So, Will, I'm guessing you have some of these, or
I do not, but I've seen some. I've seen quite a few.
Hey, there you are.
Okay, I'm telling you. So this era of Aquaman was when I read Aquaman, and I like. To me, this is the best Aquaman. That David Michelinie, Jim Aparo, year and a half when that Black Manta story where he kills his son. Like they wouldn't do that today. They couldn't get away with that story. That was vicious.
Yeah.
And ironically, I read that issue on the way down to the beach at a 7-Eleven. My mom let me stop and grab some comics. There's nothing like reading a harrowing issue of Aquaman on the beach while the ocean waves
on the way to the beach.
Yeah, so and the sand is blowing in the newsprint, but you don't care. So no, I'm not big on covers. Everyone, including Glenn, says your cover game is weak, and it is.
Don't say that.
I love the interiors. I love a good cover. Very few really like demand that I chase it down, but this one I couldn't let this one slip away. I love
Rob,
this.
You're an older school collector than I thought, because all the guys that preceded us, I mean, I've been collecting 30 years, Berkey a little longer, Glenn just a little bit less. All the guys that preceded us are like into panels way more than covers. You go through some of these older collectors' collections and you'll be hard pressed to find more than 3, 4, 5 covers.
Well, and I'm telling you, you guys all impressed the hell out of me with those covers. And I mean, some of them I really regret. I mean, Mike had a Daredevil cover about 3 or 4 San Diego's back. You've had a couple of great Frank Miller, an Amazing Spider-Man, a Daredevil, and I knew in my heart, if I don't pull the trigger right now, I'm never seeing that cover again. And it happened. And I'm like, what? So I've got to really step up my cover game. But the panel
you don't have to do that, Rob. You really don't have to do that.
No, but the panel stuff, I do love that the panel stuff, like that's the stuff that you remember. Like I would love,
yes.
I've never seen any of the older. So my favorite comic book of all time, like the best drawn, I really believe is Superman Muhammad Ali. That's my own opinion. But there is no comic that resonates with me like X-Men 141 because I remember turning the bend of the cash register out here. There was these markets called U Totem. They were like 7-Elevens, a big giant yellow U, and then TOTE, and then an M, U Totem. It was weird, but it was right near my house when we moved when I was like 9 or 10. And so that became my comic book junkie, and they had everything. And I remember walking in, turning the corner, and there is that 141 cover with Wolverine against the poster. And what am I looking at? Like, and I've never seen, I know I've got to believe Terry has that cover because that's what I believe.
Yeah,
but
he does.
Those interior pages, old Wolverine, there's only like 7 of them, right? I mean, it's hard to come by that. But those interior pages are like, I would kill for one of those. Those are crazy good stuff. It's the interior stuff that resonates. But now that's a cover. Like, guys, let's be honest. That's going for $1 million if it comes up. It's going past $1 million. If it comes up for auction or makes it, I'm telling you right now, I know guys. That is a crazy.
You may have just bought it for $1 million.
No, I mean not yet. No, I was told that stuff's all going to a museum anyway. And
Terry's going to be on the phone with you tomorrow. There was this podcast. I hear $1 million is the number.
Terry supposedly turned down a sum not significantly less than that for it, from what I hear. So,
so I spoke to Terry about all this. I won't go deep into it. I did on my podcast, but on camera I won't. And this is your show. But I was talking to Terry in 2005 at Baltimore Comic-Con, and I was making some jokes about his art collection, and maybe made an allusion to like an Ocean's 11 smash and grab, and he got really angry with me. I did not mean to offend him, but I offended him, and because he's got a really personal relationship with that artwork. That's what I picked up on, and I'm glad. Look, it's awesome that eventually, if it comes to museums, we'll all get to go look at it because I can't wait to look at that stuff. Because again, if based on the cuts, he got 6 to 7 pages an issue, there's no bigger collection of that work in existence, So
he's released a few things over the years. He actually released an X-Men cover maybe 15 or so years ago.
Is that your cover, Will? Is that what you're going to tell me? Is that your cover?
It might be.
Okay, that is a.
But I wasn't the one that was that convinced him. I was the one that was able to get it from the guy who convinced him. So.
Well, that is a beautiful, stunning, amazing, like cherry on top, once in a lifetime cover, dude. That is amazing.
It's been a couple years since I've seen it. You're going to make me sad because it's in the museum right now.
Don't be the guy that somebody spills ink on that. Okay.
Oh gosh, no.
I think it's in a frame. It's probably safe.
Yeah,
bulletproof.
I hope.
Bulletproof. I hope.
It's in an environmental frame. I hear.
Amazing. So. I mean, honestly, I bow to you. All respect. All respect.
Funny story. Many years ago, probably about 20 years ago, my all-time favorite story ever in comics, Terry inked. It's the kid who collects Spider-Man.
Yes.
The backup story is Spidey 248. We did a deal. It's a one and only time we did a deal. He was very nice. And, it's only a 10-page story, so he had 4 of the pages. And I don't know why I found him something he wanted, and I don't even remember what it was, but I remember I got 4 pages from that story.
Is that Ron Friends? Is that Ron Friends?
First ever Spider-Man art in ASF.
Okay. That's a U Totem. I got that at that U Totem. That was another what is this great back? I'm with you.
I still remember getting off the stands. I'm going like, okay, it's the Wrecking Crew. Okay, Spider-Man's going to be battling the Wrecking Crew. Okay, he's going to almost lose, and then he's going to figure a way to win. And I'm going like, man, I wish there was just something special. Then that backup story comes out, and they drew it like Ditko, and I'm going like, what is this? And I said it was the first comic book ever brought a tear to my eye. I couldn't believe it.
It moved me. That was, again, that's the relationship we have with these. I tell people the comics are as good. When you go see a movie, and I've made allusions to whether it was the Amityville Horror when I was a kid, and people go, oh, the book is better. It's the first time I remember hearing like being in some adult telling another adult, oh, the book is way better. I tell people all the time, read comics. They're better. They will give you the feels. They will move you. They are really exceptionally written and drawn.
I tell people, Amazing Spider-Man 31 to 33, Amazing 248, and you probably never. Will knows. I always tell people one of the greatest stories that nobody's ever heard of is Marvel 2-in-1 Annual 7 with the champion bouncing old Marvel heroes.
No. That is a kick-ass comic.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Ron Wilson, Armando Gill. The art is
Ron
so
Wilson,
good.
yeah. One of the greatest stories ever, and people.
I've only ever seen 2 interiors to that story, Rob. I owned them both, and I got rid of them because they were Steve Oliff specials. They were hand colored in it. I just, at the time.
Okay, the hand coloring thing. I mean, I'm so glad that Steve Oliff made out like a bandit and colored all those original art pieces. But I just want to slap that guy who did that. Like, stop! Steve Oliff was well within his means to take the assignment. Good for you, happy for you. But the dude who colored all those pages, I
said back then the pages were worth $5, and they paid him $5 to color them so they could frame them.
Yeah, I mean, these days they'll just like print out a blue line and color that, and then or a copy. So then you have like the original, and then you have the colored version, which is fine. But
you know what's with my burn obsession, the hard thing to come by is a really good Captain America page. There's some that have come up, and I've passed on a couple because Captain America is this big on the page, but there are. I mean, he did like 8 or 9 issues, and there are great pages. I have never seen them in the last.
Cap and Avengers were always the hardest 2 titles. In my earlier days of collecting. Now, because of prices, a lot more pages have come out. But I agree with you. I mean, great.
Hey,
there's some Cap.
This is I've got some Avenger stuff. John Byrne is on record in because again, I've got all these old comics interview magazines, Comics Journal, Amazing Heroes that I love because John would drop all these ideas and concepts in them that some of them he never followed up with, but he was really, like just dropping all sorts of dimes. And in one of the interviews, he said that Dan Green was his favorite inker. And like when I got these originals, I see it. I really wish I had more Dan Green inking John Byrne. It's a very, it's different than Terry. It's a little softer. Now that's Gene Day. That's, wow. And I couldn't pass this page up. This came up and I had to have it. Again, look at that top panel. You got all the Avengers. You got every single.
That's 181, right? 181.
That is. Yes. And I mean, that top panel alone is like, I have to go all in on this. It's a beautiful page. I just love it. Scarlet Witch, Beast, Don Blake, back when there was a Don Blake.
Well, what's nice is you personally got John Byrne to sign it for you, so that's pretty impressive.
I flew to his house and gave him $150,000. So,
you know what, Rob? I can relate. I have, because I've purchased a lot of his art over the years, I've been invited to visit a few times, and I've awesome. Always either found an excuse not to go or politely declined because I felt like if you meet your hero, and I heard I would probably be a little, disappointed. So.
No, he's got it's I don't care. Like, let's make some news. He's really got a beef for me. So he was signing at the IDW booth in 2019. So the last of the New York Comic Cons, and he was signing, X amount of signatures, and the guy who ran IDW knew of my favor for him. And said, get here early. I'll make sure that you get to see John. And I said, hey, buddy, I need to tell you something. That's not going to go how you think it's going to go. And I said, you, and he said, Rob, because he's been to John's house. He's hung out with them. They've done a lot together. And he goes, Rob, it's gonna not be a problem. And I said, okay, go through with this, so-and-so. And I stood off to the side and saw him approach John, and saw the flicker of the arms and this guy comes back to me no less than 2 minutes later in sweating. Oh, you were right. And again, this happened to me. This happened 2 years ago. He said, John said that if you approach the table, there'll be trouble.
Oh my
And
God.
honestly, Will, younger Rob would have been like, let me go. Here we go. I'm like, you got all these people here, and I need to be a bit mature adult and not to start a scene. And I said, I told you it's personal. And he's like, yeah, I've never seen him talk like that. And I said, that's fine. It's okay. I'm good. And thanks for believing that it could happen. And I walked away and I laughed because again, you go, dude, whatever hard on you have on me is at this point, it's ridiculous, but I can't do anything about it, but I'll continue to buy your art and display it and show it and share it with the world. Cause that era, you were like the best ever. So, but yeah, dude, if Rob comes here, there will be trouble. And you have to understand my personality. That is in my older age, because I have kids, I am mellowing and I don't need to be responsible for a scene that breaks out after he's told an important guy on staff to not have me approach. But so, like I said,
When I grow up, Rob, I'm going to be just like you.
well, good luck.
Glenn, you know, pre-kids and post-kids, your behavior changes. He's absolutely right.
It does, 100%. So whatever. Like I said, I'm entertained by it. I'm sorry that I am such a thorn in his side, and all I do is love him, and I'll always love him. And I love that he has such disdain for me. But it's like, nothing but love for you, Johnny.
You're killing him with kindness.
Why not? There's nothing like it's okay. You don't have to like me. Who cares? Like, who cares?
Yeah,
That's great.
That's a great attitude, though.
It is. It's awesome.
Life is too short. Life is too short. I always tell people.
Yeah. And
grudges. Life is too short. I mean,
More and more goes into that category too.
Enjoy life and have a good time. My whole goal in life, Rob, and I'm sure the same way we all talk. My whole goal in life now, I work 23 years at a hospital with cancer patients. My whole goal in life is I do whatever I have to have as little stress as possible in my life.
yeah,
If I have to pay money for that to happen, I do it. But I want as little stress in my life as possible because life is too short.
Mike, I'm with you. It's all about love. It's all about
Absolutely.
again. I'm like Glenn and like Will said. I got to model this for my kids. It's like young brash
Example.
Rob. I love him. He was a great kid, but I can't be that guy anymore.
Yeah.
Well, and Mike, you're surrounded by art, and that brings everyone joy. And you get you're like that every day. Every time I go to see you, that's what he looks. He doesn't set this up just for the show. This is what it looks like every day.
Trust me, I miss your booths, buddy. I miss your setup, Mike.
San Diego, we'll do it again.
Yo, put up that last comment. This is great.
Rob knows how to live like Rob Liefeld.
Right.
There we go.
Life.
Oh,
There we go.
Hey, this guy Peter keeps asking about profit. Can you say something nice about profit? Peter has asked like 30 posts about say something nice about profit.
There is. I will be like I can't say a whole lot, but so profit is one of my biggest like creation successes. We did gangbusters. The film rights were purchased about 3 years ago, and then they got a fantastic writer named Mark Guggenheim, who was the showrunner on Arrow. He's written a bunch of great comics. He is ridiculously talented, and I have read a lot of screenplays, but this one that landed was just he contacted me and wanted to send me the stuff before he'd send it to the studio, and we've gotten a really tight relationship. In the screenplay, when he was announced, like, this is weird. Like, the first appearance of Prophet jumped that day. It was great for me in regards to my relationship with the studio. The Prophet's first appearance went up like $30, and then like the websites are like, oh my gosh, the slabbed issues of Prophets are $300, $400 now, and it was just crazy. But we have gotten a lot further than that. But it's not my place to say what else is coming. So I would get in a lot of trouble if I said anything beyond what I've already said. But like, it's one of the projects that I have that has caught a real fight. Like it's on the fast track, and there's no looking back, and it's very exciting. And hopefully, before spring, we can tell how the project is coming together, because it's very exciting. So I'm glad that people are out there. They're digging that. Those extreme books that I published reached a lot of people. Again, I tell people, the Image Comics, aside from Spawn, the Spawn movie that's now 32 years old, or maybe it's
that was a great movie, by the way.
28 years old. But it's 28 years old, and no one has made anything resembling the Image Comics era. And like the reason I brought up that Prophet thing, it showed that there's a fan base. I meet these guys. They're in their late 30s. They're in their early 40s now, or slightly younger. And Image Comics was their Marvel Comics. And they can tell you everything about Jim Lee's Wildcats, Rob Liefeld's Brigade and Prophet, Todd's Spawn. They are waiting for these characters to emerge. And in a world where now Marvel, and I know Marvel is going to make the best Shang-Chi Master of Kung Fu movie, there's no doubt. But their biggest titles have been, for lack of a better word, exploited. Like, we've met and spent time with Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, right? The X-Men, Hugh Jackman, Wolverine. But that entire world of Image Comics has a fan base. You have no idea. They are passionate. They are awesome. I know so many of them, and they are waiting for this era to make its way into, whether it's streaming or film. And I'm telling you, when we get there, and if the stuff is good, it has to be good, obviously. I think you're going to see another explosion, the likes that you have not encountered, because that fan base, like, I've got people who, like, I didn't read DC Comics. I read some Marvel and all of Image. And it's that sweet spot that you see where they're now getting their own disposable income. And when they see me at shows, they're introducing me to their kids and saying, my kid is a Prophet fan just like me, or and I told Fox, this is what they have with Cable and Deadpool. Like, that's the 90s. Deadpool and Venom. Venom was kind of a questionable movie, but I knew it would do huge because the fan base is, when I say questionable, it was all over the place. But the performance by Tom Hardy was great. But these fan bases that were born in the 90s are only now beginning to be serviced, okay? And I'm telling you guys, like, that when that comes of age, if Prophet comes together and comes out, or if a Mark Silvestri Cyberforce movie, you're going to see, like, these fan bases flex. Trust me, they're out there. They know it. So I'm glad I was able to address it. Thanks for letting me know that.
It brings me back to that whole, like, naked Nazi foxhole thing. Like, I have, like, visions of these, like, Prophet fans jumping behind the booth with you and just ripping their shirt and, like, showing you their Prophet tattoo or whatever,
Maybe you'll be there visiting with me, and you can videotape it if they're naked and they're jumping behind my booth. And
I'd love to see your expression in that moment.
I'll be happy to pose for the Instagram pic. Not a
problem. I love the prophesizing that you're giving right now. What's to come?
Yeah, no, Will, I'm telling you, it's that the thing about Marvel is I've said this on my podcast. Feige is clearly our age, and he is mining all the stuff. Look what's coming: Eternals, Master of Kung Fu.
Right.
He is a 70s Marvels guy. Okay,
yeah. Like,
it's in everything he does. He is putting what he loved as a kid, and I've talked to Kevin. I know where his loves, lie. And the great thing he said to me, it was at 2019 at one of the industry functions. He's like, just because I told him how excited I was about the Eternals. And I think he was like, wow, Rob, why are you so excited about the Eternals? And I said, it's all Jack Kirby. It's 100% nobody else but Jack. There's no other names on that. And he's like, he goes, it crushes me that he wasn't alive to see this. It crushes me. He goes, I'm glad that Stan was able to see it, but what we've done with Marvel, I wish Jack would have seen. And you go, man, that is from the heart. He was speaking.
Right.
He could have easily brushed me off, dismissed it, moved to another topic, but
that's great.
He's totally into it. But if you look at what's coming, again, Black Widow and Taskmaster is an 80s character. You got the Eternals 70s, Master of Kung Fu 70s. A lot of WandaVision. Come on, all this stuff they're doing is these are stories from the 70s. These books that are popping from retailers, or the Vision and Scarlet Witch miniseries that Rick Leonardi did that came out in 1982. So, like, we haven't really gone into the 90s other than Deadpool and Cable and Venom, like 4 movies. And so I'm telling you, these fans are hungry, and that's all I'll say because I'm taking up too much time.
I think you're right.
No, well, you answered that question for him. Hey, before I know it's getting a little late, and I don't want to not show this video clip that.
Oh yeah, the video.
Oh, yeah.
This was put together by Anthony Snyder, and something. And I know that he talked to Glenn and somehow got over to you, Rob, about something. But you'll enjoy it. I think you'll enjoy it. So
Okay.
let me pull this.
I showed this showed you the thing in this video, Rob. You'll get it when you see the video.
I have no idea what I'm about to watch. You know, if I'm not here when the video's done, I
It's not a naked Nazi.
not a
you can
naked
tell you
Nazi.
that.
Okay.
Not a
No, it
naked
is not.
if the chair is empty, I didn't like it. Okay, go ahead.
Come
All
on,
right, so
give me-
this next bit that we're doing here today at Gun for Hire here in, what's the name of the town?
Woodland Park, New Jersey.
Woodland Park, New Jersey. Yep, straight out 80 for me. It was easy to get to. Very centrally located in Bergen County. We're still in Bergen County, right? Are we still in Bergen County? I think we're still, yeah, it's close enough. The other gag the bit we want to do is this, we have this Rob Liefeld sketch that somebody traded me in some deal a while ago, and Rob says it's not real. So Bill Cox hired us, I put it out there, $20 and you get to pick how we destroy it. And he said, by gunfire. Ha!
You missed.
You missed.
No, you'll be surprised.
I thought we were going to burn this thing.
He's crazy.
I think he could have used a handgun.
So, Rob, this is how we handle forgery.
AJ, you want to shoot
I
one?
love it. Now I know what you're talking about.
Okay, there you go, kid.
He lets his
Put
son
the
take a
safety
shot
back
at
on,
it too.
hand it to you.
With your thumb, go ahead and push
What
it
the-
to now. Now it's
I love
fine.
it.
Where are you aiming for? Stay away from his face. My grouping was on his face. So shoot his claw off.
Let's take a look.
All right. That's
Okay.
not bad.
That's it.
I had one miss. I was trying to shoot a smiley face in it. It's
That's
pretty
really good.
good.
That's
Wow.
pretty
That
good.
was my lower
Wow.
smile and then my two eyes. I was
am
trying to go
definitely-
right for the eyes with the smiley face.
I'm not going to
Not
steal
bad.
anything from
Not bad
Anthony.
handheld at standing. Handheld standing is the hardest part.
Pretty good shot.
It's a lot
Yeah.
harder because there's a bipod
Yeah.
on the front.
No,
Also,
that-
which
that is
Yeah, it's
fantastic.
heavier.
That
It
is-
makes it heavier on the
Yeah.
front.
That's
I had one
amazing.
bad miss, and then AJ shot his claw off. That's cool. Good
Well
shot.
done.
Let's do a picture like that.
I love it. That's what you should do. That is a fake. So that's great. That is
Yeah.
great.
So Anthony sent me that, and he said, like, is this by Rob? And I said, I don't know. I said, it doesn't look like it, but I'll send it to Rob. So I shot it to you, and you were like, fake.
No, and this was a period in the early 90s. Jim Lee and I would track this guy down, and we confronted him one San Diego with all the, I mean, this guy is in the same building as us trying to sell these sketches that aren't us. And to me, to the naked eye, it doesn't doesn't even look like how I construct things. It has it maybe there's a nose and a mouth on there that is reflective, but like we confronted this guy and he flipped out on us and then like literally picked up his stuff and got the hell out of there. Cause I remember Jim was pretty hot too. It's just so like, what are you doing? You're in the same building as us in the 90s selling forgeries or, I mean, just putting our name on stuff. It's pretty brazen, right? And it's not something I encounter much anymore, but so when I see those, I can identify them immediately. And I know some guys are really crestfallen, but it's like, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that that's real when it's completely
Right.
not the
No,
thing.
it
So
doesn't
that's
do
a great video, and he is a great shot. And now I know that I need Anthony guarding my house in the future insurrections. Okay, so wow, he's a good shot.
Yeah, he was.
shot,
He was.
really. It's not his first time at the range, obviously.
No.
Well, he did have the
no.
scope. He did have the scope, but yeah, he's a pretty good shot. Yeah.
Hey, Rob, I was thinking, do you remember I wish I still had it, but I think I actually sold it. But probably, I think when you were 16, you did a pinup for the comic book store with all the Marvel heroes around it.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yes, I did like 3 of them.
Yeah, when you were like 16, I think. I remember
No,
having
that
a
was
and
100%.
you had it hand colored too.
They would print it on their bags and flyers. It was
Yeah.
it was a great little accomplishment you would have as a teenager, right?
When
No,
you were starting
so
out.
I did like 3 of those for different people, and one guy locally, one of the stores bought them and said, "Come here, I want to show you what I got." And I was like, "Wow!" Again, that's when I bought my George Perez technical
Right.
pins, man. I'm like, I'm gonna ink as clean as Terry and George. So that's cool.
Awesome. Blast
That's
from the
really cool.
past, huh?
It was.
Very much so.
Is that a rapidograph, the technical
Yes,
pen?
there was 2 different brands, Kohinoor,
Mhm.
and then Stadler Mars, and they were the premier technical pens. They were very expensive, so I would buy 1 or 2 of my own. But again, I knew to start kicking them towards birthday and Christmas gifts, and that's what I would end up getting like at that stage in my life, like art supplies. And
When I was in art school, I went to the High School of Music and Art, and one of the things they asked us to buy was a rapidograph, and so they were expensive, and we got one, and the ink would always it would always jam up.
It would always back up. Yeah, they would jam terribly, completely. But again, Glenn, George Perez told me that that's what he used, so that is what I was going to use. Period. End of story.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to tell you something. George Perez was another guy in the Kirby realm. Could not have been sweeter, kinder, nicer, more generous. Like George, I think taught my entire generation how to treat fans, how to interact and be kind, because he treated all of us so well. I mean, again, we're talking about don't meet your heroes. All my heroes have been awesome, except for the one crazy one. And I mean, he's just crazy. But like Mike Zeck, Jerry Ordway, George Perez, Jack Kirby, I'm just blanking. But all of the Bronze Age guys were just great, wonderful, kind, generous with their time. And so, you just get one bad apple and you just shrug and go, what's up with that guy? Right. But so many of them and George, because George loved Southern California. He would come out here 2 or 3 times a year. Easy. Do comic stores, do conventions. He loved coming out to Orange County specifically and doing all of the local scene. So I had probably the most access to him. And again, that's right when he took on the Teen Titans. And so all the way through Crisis. So he was a fixture around here, which is great. John Romita Jr., a lot of these guys, they would come out. So,
John
I
great.
It's just a crazy guy. The one crazy guy who's just, he's a bit of a Fruit Loop, and I'm good with it. Like, I can't wait to see what else is in the Heritage Auction. I'm like, where's my wish list? What's up with my wish list? We're getting fun on this stuff.
Hey, inquiring minds want to know: did you enjoy when you did that? When you did that Lee Jeans commercial back in the day?
Dude, that was that. So Mike, that was a scene. That was incredible because with those commercials, I was in the 2nd season of that campaign. When the first, so that's the MTV era. I'm drawing with MTV on all the time. I'm 21.
I remember seeing that. I thought it was awesome.
So yeah, no, it was. I mean, the fact is, like I'm like, it's Spike Lee. I'm being directed by Spike Lee. I spent 2 days with Spike Lee, and it was fun. And the ad executives were very disappointed that I had such a flat ass, and told me about it. Oh my God, this kid has no ass. And I'm like, okay, I didn't know I was a jeans model. I thought I was here because I was a cartoonist. And these 6 foot tall women in their power suits and their high heels going, oh my God. I'm like, yeah, but the mustard shirt, that's what we're after, right? The mustard yellow shirt. I'm going to tell you a funny thing, Mike. That was a weird period because I don't think anybody knew what to make of that because they used, I mean, they're Deadpool's in that commercial, Cable. They were using all my New Mutants X-Force art. Now I filmed that about a month before X-Force came out, because I was in my hotel doing X-Force 3 pages, and because it was in New York, because we filmed the majority of it at Spike Lee's studio, I was able to go hand in pages each day afterwards to Marvel's offices. But so then they had to clear it because it started playing in the fall around the time about X-Force 4 and 5 were coming out is when it started airing.
Wow.
But Marvel had to clear it all, and one, I won't say his name, but a guy from Marvel called me up and he says, "Oh my gosh, have you seen your commercial?" And I said, "No, you haven't?" He goes, "Yeah, of course we have it. We have to clear it. If we don't clear it, this commercial doesn't happen." I said, "Okay." He goes, "So you haven't seen it?" And he goes, "No." He goes, "You look like an idiot." And I said, "Okay, I'm good with that." And my buddy, who was my assistant at the time, Marat, because the guy was on speakerphone, and I said, "Is there any way you guys can send that to me?" And they said, "Yeah, we'll run a copy, and if Levi's gives us the clearance, we'll send it to you." And so they FedEx it to me. I got it a couple days later, and I go, "This is offbeat." I said, "I think this is going to connect." I know what he's saying because, like, at the end, do I say? I'm talking like an idiot. Spike ended up using mostly outtakes because, he thought those worked better. So at the end, when I go, "Do I look down and say as my fly blood?" I mean, I am kind of a blithering idiot, but I go, I love this version of me. But like I said, the weirdness, I remember the guy at Marvel telling me I looked like an idiot, implying like you should be horribly embarrassed. And what I wanted to say to him is, this is going to play for 2 years, bitch. So like I wish you were me, asshole. I mean, my wife and her sisters had done commercials, and they taught me about cycles, and that you get paid for every cycle. That commercial ran for 5 cycles. That's every cycle is 3.5 months, 3.5 months. So I played every season plus, and you're like, because I mean, that was tremendous. Like,
awesome.
boom. But I was like, hey man, I draw comics. I'll call up they said on MTV, they had a commercial that said, "Do you do something interesting in your 501 genes? If so, call and let us know." That's it. And so I called and I said, "My name is Rob Liefeld. I draw comic books for Marvel Comics. I draw a comic called New Mutants. It's turning into X-Force. I live in Orange County." And it went, and like I ran out. Like I'd give my number. And then when I got the call and said, "We want to come see you and evaluate you and see if we'll have you." So I love it. I love, like,
wow, that's how it happened.
You didn't get typecast as a blithering idiot? I mean, like,
no, not yet.
Hollywood's not calling, going like, "We need a blithering idiot."
Flat-assed.
But again, you learn early on, like, who's in your corner and who's not in your corner. And you go, okay, note to self, I need to watch out for you. You are not in my corner, and that's cool. I think I can maneuver around you. Like, it's so much more the comic book game. And look, the guys who knew it, and this is what I dig, Frank Miller didn't just draw comics. He was playing the game. He knew, like, when to leave, when to enter, which projects to pick. And Byrne the same way. You think Byrne went to Superman just because he felt like it? He knew, like, I've done everything at Marvel, and now I can go be the big guy at DC Comics and relaunch their icon. Mm-hmm. And it was the right move at the right place, and it probably juiced him for the next 4 years. And the reason I know this is because you guys should know this, and George Perez can verify this. One of his last times in Orange County, coming to one of the creation cons, it was after Crisis and before he was doing Wonder Woman. Well, by that time we had become phone buddies. He would call me and talk to me, and I was just a fan. Like, I wasn't in the business yet. And so I picked him up at Orange County Airport at John Wayne and drove him to his hotel in Anaheim. And he had lost a ton of weight. That was the first thing. Like, he had really had this dramatic weight loss, and he had this tightly fitted suit, and he was like glamour George Perez. It was hilarious. And he was so excited and so nice and so happy and he's like, "Oh, the weather out here is beautiful." And he's like, I said, "So what's it like with Wonder Woman?" And he goes, "Well, when we get to the hotel, I'll show you the first few pages and I'll show you the cover." And then he eventually said, "Could you go and get copies of this so I could have them at my table for the show tomorrow?" And I was happy to do it. But he said to me, he goes, "Well, Rob, you know why I did Wonder Woman? I had to. After Crisis," he said, "John Byrne doing Superman and Frank Miller doing Batman, I can't be left out. So I said, I have to do Wonder Woman. I have to do the third icon that they have." And again, right there, I mean, that is word for word George Perez to me as I am driving him in my car to the hotel. And he would tell me about the business and how competitive it was, and he would talk to me about pay structures and royalties. So these guys were always generous and gave me details and the insight to the business. But again, there it is right there. John is doing Superman. Frank is doing Batman. I can't be left out. So I love the competitive nature, right? The competition. These guys were always competing with each other, and they raised their game, and it's comic books. You can tell it's my favorite subject. I love it. It's freaking awesome. And the things these guys accomplished are have obviously had a profound impact on all of us. So
yeah,
I love it.
Rob, I'm right there with you, but you're infectious, man. I want to like pull a couple books before I go to sleep later on.
Yeah, me too.
Everything that you were talking about.
Hey, I'm gonna go look. My wife there's a joke around my house. I go, what does Dad love? And they go, oh, comics. We know. Because I think my son, as he left for his second year of college, he pops his head in my office, and he goes, Dad, what's it like? And okay, on the floor, I won't get him. I got all my Shogun Warriors. I live in a big, playpen. And he goes, Dad, what's it like being a big kid that never grew up? You draw comics, you eat candy, and you play with toys all day. And I'm like, oh shit, my kid he's made me. I've been made, But like, what a great life. I got mugs. I got coffee mugs of my character. Okay, come on. It's the best. So that's it's a great life. I have no regrets. I love my career. I love comics. I'm always buying comics. The retailers here will tell you, man, and the bug to recapture the Bronze Age, it goes beyond the books. Like my wife, because I had a crazy deadline and I finished it. And on Friday night, I never bring the comics in the house. But she knows I was chained to the table for 8 days straight. And so we had the Laker game on, and I had bought a bunch of Mylars, and I was going to put all my Avengers Bronze Age, Avengers 100 to 200, so 100 books. I'm going to put those in Mylars. And my wife's like, look at you nesting. You're nesting. I think she just goes, this insane person I married who just loves his comics. Yes, but dude. And I said to Joy, well, my retailer, he bought a collection 2 years ago, right before the pandemic or a little before. And he goes, hey, Rob, check out this collection. It's all the Bronze Age stuff that I love. And they're all in kind of beat up bags. And he goes, check this out. Watch this. And he literally takes the book, takes it out, puts it in a Mylar, and goes, doesn't it look better now, all nice and shiny? And I'm like, it does. I need to make my comics nice and shiny. So, it's the collections too. It's just everything. I love comics. It's my favorite subject, like I said. So thank you, Will. Thank you.
I said comics have been
my pleasure.
Well, Rob, you got to promise that you'll be back on our show sometime.
I would love to.
This has been so much fun.
Or so you should be on, yeah.
I was so excited. Like I said, I had a bunch of interviews today and press stuff, and I'm like, all I want to get to is 6 o'clock to talk with the Comic Art Live guys. Okay, that's all. I was so excited, and I said, because I sent my whole family out of the house. I'm like, don't interrupt me. Don't the dog will go crazy. I gotta come off like a professional. Everyone, if you're gonna go to your friend's house, everybody's got to be out of here by 10 to 6. So they all did me a solid, and so my dog didn't go crazy because that would have been bad. He barks at everything.
What kind of dog?
No one can tell us.
It's a mix.
My sister-in-law came in and she goes, you have it now. I can't, but they're from the Caribbean, and she clicks the name. I cannot believe I can't remember this, but she goes, these dogs are from the Caribbean. And no, I'll put a picture up. The type of dog it is, I'm embarrassed right now. I cannot even tell you.
Next time,
yeah,
take a picture for us.
Because I told somebody else they had one, and they said, what are you talking about? Because it's crazy. But when you see these dogs in the Caribbean, they're everywhere. I don't know how we got this one, but he's awesome. So
that's awesome.
Stowaway.
And talking about subscribing, Bill.
Oh, yeah. If you enjoyed tonight's show, you should subscribe to our YouTube channel. But you got to also find Robservations, Rob's podcast is phenomenal. It's every Tuesday and Friday, right, Rob?
Correct. Yep. Drop 2 a week. Yes.
Yeah.
What a great name, Rob. Seriously, that's a great podcast name.
Hey, you know what? I had to do something, right? I mean, all the other comic book names were taken. I'm like, well, what about Robservations? And I cleared it. So thanks, Will.
That's
and
perfect.
for therapy. This was therapy. That's therapy. It's all about comic book therapy and making the world better through comic books.
Well, thanks so much, Rob, for gracing us with your presence.
Yeah,
It
we
was
really appreciate it.
incredible.
Guys, thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
We'll do it again.
Thank
All
you, guys. All right, I'll be by. I'll be by again soon. Just invite me.
We will
Okay.
definitely do that. All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in tonight.